Hi and welcome to Car Mechanical, and today I'm going to show you how to change the front discs and pads on your Audi A3 8L. So we're going to go straight into it. I'm going to start by chocking the back wheels, and we're going to slacken off all of the nuts and the locking nut before we jack the car up as well. So I'm going to go over this with a breaker bar over all five, don't need to show you the whole thing. Once we've done that, we're going to jack the car up under its jacking point. I'm going to use an airline and an impact wrench here just to be lazy and to undo things quickly. It saves quite a bit of time if you do have an airline. So let's get all five of those off. And as well, we've got the locking nut as well, so we're going to undo that. So typically after this, the wheel should just come off, but for some reason it's incredibly firm. So try a couple of different methods to get it off. The first one is literally just to hit it or kick it, and normally that loosens it. It's not working this time though, so we're going to get a block of wood and a mallet from underneath and try and knock that and rotate the wheel and see if that comes off. And it starts to become a bit looser, but he's not fully doing it. So I'm just going to finish it off with my friend hitting it from behind whilst I'm ready to catch the wheel. So if we jump back in front, and then that will come off. I think this is just a build up of brake dust on the tyre, and it could probably use some anti-seize when it was fitted. Okay, so let's fit the jack stands. I'm going to put these under the control arms, or you might refer to these as the wishbones. I'm going to put them onto a central point on there, and then we're going to lower the car down and just make sure it's taking the weight before we pull the jack out and get to work. So we can see there that it's all nicely supported, and we'll just let the rest of the jack down. Now these are the discs that are on the car. You can see they're quite pitted and they've been in much better days, and one of the things I've decided to do here is to swap out the Brembo discs and pads just because I want everything to be nicer. So to start, take these cap covers off of the back of your brakes, and you're going to undo these with Torx bits. I'm going to put the Torx bit on screen for what you need to undo these with, but you're just going to do these little bolts or pistons that hold the caliper in place. And then once you've got them undone, the caliper should come off. However, you may need to give it a bit of a knock. So I'm knocking things here with a sand-filled mallet, and just hitting it in one direction didn't work, so we've hit it from the other. We're just going to loosen those pads off of the disc, and then it's going to pull off. There we go. So the disc's still being held on at the moment by a retaining screw, so we're going to use an impact driver to undo the screw because I'm expecting it to be stiff like everything else has been so far. So the impact driver is just a screwdriver that you can give a smack with a hammer and it will undo things and force it round. This saves you having to break screwdriver blades, which I've done previously. So we just turn that, and then eventually a few more hits it will come loose and it will let the disc actually come off. So it's taking a little bit of work here, but eventually the screw does come loose and we can take off this old disc. Now actually these discs may not be as bad as they initially look, although they look absolutely dreadful. We measured them, and what we find is that the discs that come off are about 21.5mm, and the minimum spec for them, or the spec they should be when you get them, is about 22mm. So we're quite surprised that they're in that condition, but I think if they were brake lathed and then stripped down, you'd probably be left with maybe 20 good usable discs. Now I found this on the passenger side, those little pistons, we found that they actually were different in size as well, so just something to watch out for. And we found that on the carrier, part of it had been refitted, so it had been bored out a bit or drilled out a bit and re-threaded for a larger piston. So what you can also do at this time is you can quickly go over and just brush off all of the debris and rubbish. However, if you use this tool here, this air nail gun will just break everything off. It will literally tear through everything in seconds that's loose. Now you might not have one of these tools, but if you do have access to one, or if you can afford one for sort of 20 to 30 pounds when you go up from there, they can be really worth getting. And the benefit of why I'm doing this, it makes the carrier nice and clean for when the caliper goes back on, and it means nothing's going to foul on the pads and everything's going to be easier to take off in the future. And this is the after effect, literally maybe just giving it a tiny bit of a brush after, but it's just cleaned off so much of that corrosion. So we've got the new discs here. I'm trying to point out there that it's a Brembo, and as we put that onto the hub itself, we're going to line up the retaining screw hole with the hole on the hub. Now this can be a little bit tricky to place and start to get the screw on, but just bear with it a little bit, and if you can get any help, that's great. So we're going to use the impact driver just to put it all back on. You could have just done it with a regular screwdriver. And what we're going to do here as well, I'm just going to show you that you want to make sure that that retaining screw goes all the way down, A, so it's doing its job properly, and B, so it doesn't foul on anything. So we're going to take the old pads off, and these are quite stubborn, so you might want a bit of help, or you may not want to try and do it one-handed whilst filming. But get the old pads off. You can see they're nearly worn down all of the way. And then we're going to jump across to the new pads in a minute, but you might just need to hit these out or use something with leverage. Please be careful if you're using a screwdriver, because I've done it myself, I've seen other people do it. You leverage it out with a big screwdriver, the screwdriver slips and you cut yourself or worse. And in preparation for putting the new pads in, the first thing we need to do is take the brake reservoir cap off. That's because we're going to use a wind back tool. Wind back tools, you can get these for £10 to £20. I've had this one for over 10 years and it's one of the best investments tool-wise I've ever made, because it gets used again and again and allows me to do this kind of job. So they normally sit in the caliper and you put them in one way or the other. Sometimes those little sort of teeth on them will grip into the disc and wind it back. Sometimes you just push back on the disc until you get to this point, and you can put a socket on it as well. So the wind back tool back all the way, we're going to use our new pads. So I'm just going to show you that the Brembo's here, and just going to show you where the springs are. And we're going to pop those pads in the same order that we took out the other ones. So you can see the amount of material that's actually on that compared to what we had coming off. And then we're going to put the other one onto the piston. And then we're going to put the caliper on as well. So because of it's all cleaned up nicely, the caliper should slide on nice and easily like so. And then we're going to put the pistons in. So we're going to use the Torx bits here to tighten everything up. So you're going to line up the holes first, and then just use your Torx bits on a ratchet until they're fully honed. I don't torque these as such, I just sort of do them until I'm happy enough that I can do it, and then a bit of effort for a quarter turn. And put your caps back on. So we are nearly done, but we're just going to follow it through to the end. So what we're going to show you here, it doesn't look like much, but I'm actually in the car pumping the brake, and what that does, it pulls the pads onto the disc itself, so the engagement's already pretty much there. So the first time you brake, you're not having to pump the brake a few times to get it in place for the pads. So just to reverse what we did to get everything going, we're going to put the wheel on, we're going to start to thread the nuts on, so I'm going to put all 5 on quickly here. We're then going to use the impact gun to quickly do everything up loosely, so this will only go to about 45 newton meters anyway, foot-pound of torque even, and then we're going to use a torque wrench to finish it all off. So let's just do the locking key there, and this is set to 75 foot-pounds. Now technically that's you all done. What I am going to do, I'm going to put a link in the description below to a very good guide on how to bed in your pads. I hope you found this video useful. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section below. If you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please subscribe to the channel. If you think anyone else will find this video helpful, please share it, and please leave a thumbs up if you did like the video too.